Welcome back. This week's Newsmaker show is we're showing off one of our local active and concerned and participating citizens. Tim Fleming is our Newsmaker this week. Tim Fleming, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
If you've never met Tim Fleming, it's because you've never been to a council meeting or you just haven't been around very long. Tim is a very active and participating citizen. He's been around Lake Elsinore for how many years?
24 years.
24 years. And so when the city staff gets a new manager and they need to get the background of one issue or another, they literally send them down to talk to Tim, because Tim is quite the librarian, he's quite the archivist, and he's quite the active citizen. So Tim, what we'd like to do today is have you introduce yourself, explain to us for about 5 minutes, what brought you to Lake Elsinore, how it is that you became a active citizen, and then tell us your palm tree story.
Thank you. Okay, my name's Tim Fleming, and we moved here 24 years ago. We moved to Lakeshore Drive to a property that overlooked the lake. And when we came here on Super Bowl Sunday, believe it or not, from Long Beach, California. I've lived in Malibu, Santa Monica. We've traveled quite a bit, and we saw the property was owned by a friend that said, "Hey, there's a guy that's going to sell this. He's moving to Tucson. Would you be interested in commercial property?" And so we wanted a commercial property because we were running our own business, a sales rep firm. So we came out on Super Bowl Sunday. We couldn't find it, but we saw the Lakeshore Drive. You saw the light posts, the standards, we saw the boulevards, we saw the buildings, and we thought to ourselves, somebody really done something here at one time, but what happened? So we finally found the house, looking all over for it, and when we looked at it, we saw the lake, the natural beauty of this area, and we saw, knowing myself, I knew I could take care of the peripherals, clean things up and make it look nice. They were going to tear our house down. It was in such bad shape, but it was zone commercial neighborhood. We ended up looking at it. He told us the price. We made him a stupid offer. He took it. So we thought, oh darn. Had we looked behind us, what was behind the house, we probably wouldn't have moved there. But at that time, it was a golden opportunity. We didn't have a lot of money, and it was affordable. So we moved in, and I proceeded to work on the house. It took us 4 months to move in, but we got to the house. We went ahead and built it 2 or 3 years, and became really in love with the scenery. Whenever we got discouraged with working on the house, we'd sit on the front deck, and that solved all the problems. Then we went ahead and got involved in neighborhood areas. My mom always said, sweep in front of your own door first. I did that. And then when you get that done, guess what? You can start doing surrounding areas. That's what we did. That's what I did anyways. So things were going great, and finally it came along a situation where the palm trees, which I was able to find a little bit out of them, Canary Island 8 palms, were in threat. There was a survey crew running around, and they were taking measurements and photographs. And
when was this?
The palm trees.
When did you see the surveys?
About 1997.
Okay.
And for a year and a half, I followed those guys. They would be in the backfield and do it, and every time I'd ask them, hi, how are you? What are you doing? They said, oh, we're taking inventory. Well, usually you take an inventory for a reason, but they wouldn't tell me what it was. So they say, maybe go to the city building. So I went to the city building, never having been there before, and I started asking questions. And I hit a stone wall. So not getting an answer is an answer. So I got an answer that something was going on with the palm trees, and that was really the only thing in my neighborhood called Country Club Heights, north of Cheney, that was of any value. They were beautiful trees, unkept, and they were just gorgeous.
But how many are there?
There were literally thousands of trees in Lake Elsinore, in the Country Club Heights area, in the 20s and 30s. They planted them there from the Kellogg family, I believe. Wasn't that the Kellogg's? Kellogg family. And along with eucalyptus trees and juniper trees. And in the old photographs, you can see all those trees all along the Lakeshore Drive and in the hills, and they landscaped the area with the trees. So after a couple of years, I found out that there was a new development in Lake Elsinore, that they were going to remove those trees. And this was 1999, fast forward. And they, in December, they went in front of City Council. We put together a citizens group and went ahead, and I found an environmental attorney because they didn't have permission to take those trees, and the trees were owned by the residents of Lake Elsinore. They were in right-of-ways, which they didn't own the trees, and I had to get an environmental attorney in order for us to go forward, because they really could have taken them out. They were going to take out over 200 trees and move them to a new development. And I said, what about my neighborhood in Lakeshore Drive and Country Club Heights? They said, well, we'll improve the streets and clean them up and landscape them and widen it. And as of today, they still haven't done it. That was 17 years ago. And we went to the meeting in December that said they were going to take the trees out. It was a 5-0 vote, and that there's nothing we could do about it. Well, at the end of the council meeting, I got people into the back of the room, and I says, I have here a lawsuit by our attorney, and what it is it will go to court, Judge Trask's court, and get a restraining order. So we got a injunction to, it worked. We went to court, and then 2 months later she ruled that they didn't have, because they didn't do an EIR, which is an environmental impact report, that they couldn't take the trees. That stopped the whole thing. But during that time, before we went to court, it wasn't just Tim Fleming that did that. We had over 600 signatures.
Wow.
From a Sunday afternoon between 1 and 3, we had 600 signatures of residents of Lake Elsinore that were concerned with losing the trees, and here are all of the signatures. This along with the lawsuit. Without this, we probably wouldn't have won.
Right.
There's no way in the world. But these are not duplicates. These are the original signatures, and that was the first time I understood that in Lake Elsinore that there was a movement that people could get behind for a cause.
Right.
This was a blue-collar working city. It was about 21,000 people then, and yeah, it was old, over 100 years old then, and I felt that the city needed a chance, and without a plan to move the trees and replace them with something. And even today, if they said, let's improve this place, let's make a scenic Lakeshore Drive, I'd be out there with a shovel helping them dig them out and replanting them and make this town what it deserves to be. And the Lake Elsinore is the focal point, in my opinion, of the lake.
So the reason that you have Canary Island palms still down on Lakeshore Drive is because they didn't get moved.
They didn't get moved, and I could go on for 2 days talking about this, but there's another positive aspect about the thing. They did go ahead and they gave me 3 plaques congratulating me on suing the city and winning. These were all from the city council and city members,
Was it the same 5-0 vote from the same people?
Yeah, the same people that did that. But that's politics. You know, that's fun.
Yeah.
That's if you know the rules before you get involved in politics, you can handle rejection or you can handle success. You've got to be involved. You've got to get involved, regardless of what the circumstances are. Or you know, you didn't need any money. I had some, but it just you've got to get involved. Even today is more important than it was probably 15 years ago.
Well, what I think a lot of people may not understand is our 5 city council members, they're actually residents of the city, just like me and you, and they don't get paid. They, you know, it's you know,
what, 20-hour-a-week job. They put in a lot of hours, but they don't get paid. They're just representing our interest, and really they can't do it by themselves. They need to know what you and I and all the other residents think about Lake Elsinore, and if we see something that's not going correct, follow your example and become an active participating citizen.
Exactly. That's what you have to do. And another good spin-off of that was we were able to save the street lights. We got $91,000 to electrify them. They were just poles. We got new double heads on the light standards on Lakeshore Drive. So we saved the palm trees through the Historical Society. We saved the light post. We got them lit. And the city again said, well, they weren't going to approve that money for the light post that year. And they said, well, why don't you just go ahead and we'll wait till we improve Lakeshore Drive. I said, no, let's light them now, and then when they improve them, we can just move them. So, and that's what they did. So they were reluctant in doing that also. So, and then during the meetings we had with Edison, because that was a reason it was an excuse they were using to move the palm trees, that the power lines were getting in them and they were going to be killed because they were trimming and they were going to hack them and chop them up, and that was true on some of them, but not 200 of them. So when we got into those meetings, I found out from Edison, California Edison, that we had a fund that was available to us that the city pays into based on their electric bill every month, 1.5%, to go ahead and have a fund set up so they could use it for improvements of visual, for anything we wanted to do for undergrounding. It was an undergrounding ordinance. So we pay into that fund. Every city does, and so you can underground in a scenic area if you wanted to. So that was A, B, and C, and I said, oh, that's great. Well, about a year later, I thought it'd be nice to put the lines underground on Lakeshore Drive. And that went forward, and Edison said, well, you've got to have an ordinance. And I said, what do you mean you got to have an ordinance? He said, well, you have to have an underground ordinance in order to bury the lines. For you to use the money, at that time it was $900 and some thousand. For you to use this money, you've got to have an ordinance and furnish it with that, and then we'll start with it. If you don't use it, you lose it. So I went to the city building again, and I says, I need the ordinance for the undergrounding of, we want to put the wires underground, and we can afford to do it. He said, well, you can't do that. I said, why not? He said, we don't have an ordinance.
We don't have one.
We didn't have one, period. So I said, what do you do when you're doing a development and all the lines are going underground? And they said, well, we use Coronas, we use Temecula's example, we use other cities. I said, you gotta be kidding. So it took almost 2.5 years after that point to get the council members to vote on an underground ordinance. So that again is getting involved in politics. So.
Well, good.
So that was all because of the palm tree lawsuit.
Starts with the palm trees. Well, if you find yourself down on Lakeshore Drive, right past Jack's Barbecue, right?
Yes.
Take that drive. You'll be going right past Tim's house when you see those Canary Island palms. If you go at night and you see the lights lit up, you need to remember Tim Fleming. You don't need to remember him. You can call him and talk to him because Tim is here.
And the historical, it was a community effort. It's not Tim Fleming. So I want to make that clear. In the Historical Society. So if you find enough support on your efforts and it's the right one, you'll have success.
So we're here with the Historical Society, with Tim, with people who've been living here for quite some time. They're active, participating citizens, whether it's palm trees or a light post or undergrounding electric wires. If you've got an issue that you think needs to be addressed in your neighborhood, you can follow the examples of the people that we've been interviewing these past couple weeks. Get involved, be a participating active citizen, and get what you need done. It might take 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, 1 decade, who knows? But it doesn't start until someone gets involved. Tim, thanks for visiting with us this week.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.